Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. How y'all do? How y'all feel? I am Wiley, your favorite information scientist in training. You watching the Wiley Report? It's Sunday. It's 10:24. I love the beach background because the beach is my favorite place. One of my favorite places. I know one of the things that I miss uh, about living in Miami. Well, I I didn't necessarily live in Miami. I lived in Hialeah and then the Fort Lauderdale area and worked on Key Biscayne. But that, of course, was 13 years ago. Was it 13 years ago? Let me think. No, actually, it was longer than 13. It was 13 years ago when I left. Um, I moved there in 2008. So that is a little bit longer. But anyway, I was there for 2008 to 2012. And what I miss, the people and the work community and friends and stuff in the church communities that I belong to, definitely. And how I think about the time now, most of the people that I knew that lived there, some people are still there, and some people they moved to other places and spaces. But my point about the beach was I worked on Key Biscayne, and behind the lab that I worked was the beach was surrounding you. So sometimes on my lunch break, I would drive over to the beach and park my car and just sit and relax, meditate, take a nap, eat my lunch. All of those things were a part of it, of the experience. And because it was Miami, I mean Miami in terms of cold weather. I mean, maybe you get one good week, and by the time you pull out your sweater and a sweater vest, and that is a wrap. So I miss those beach time lunch experiences that I had, and I haven't. I mean, I've been on for conferences. I've been to different areas that had a beach, and like in 2019, and then also in 2023. Just go to a conference again that was in San Diego, and I got to go sit at the beach again. So I'm hoping that at some point before I return to work, I get to go one more time. I'm trying to see if that's even possible. But I have a lot of irons in the fire and a lot of things going on, so I do not know if that's realistic. Uh, but today, I guess what I can talk about is 1028 is Qual Scholars has a retreat this weekend. It's been going really well for me. I will always appreciate Dr. Marvette Lacey and the Qual Scholar community. It's 10 pages, 2 days. Yesterday, I started working on the findings from my uh, interviews. I coded 12 interviews to my code book. I did a total of 34 interviews, and I'm doing 12 for my actual dissertation. Uh, this one part because I'm doing two methodologies. I know, come punch me in the face. Seriously. I say that in jest, but now it's like I get why the second committee member kept saying, "Chris, you sure you want to do two methodologies?" And I'm like, yes. I'm still excited about critical technocultural discourse analysis, CTDA, and I've started doing the video analysis. But I get now why he was like, they were like, you sure? Because it's kind of like you finish one and then you start another. But one of the chief arguments, not chief, but central arguments of my work is you need both of them together in order to know what's going on. And I still believe that. It's just realizing what that entails. And yes, it's true. I've done interviews before, but the difference is the target audience that I talk to the research questions, the fact that it's a longer publication than or longer amount of writing. Well, publication is right because it's dissertation. That's not the same thing as a journal article. I mean, people after the dissertation probably can make either books, chapters, or or numerous journal articles should they choose to do that. But the dissertation itself is a long document. So that's where we're at, and I have the goal of submitting a draft to my committee to show them where I'm at with the findings, and it's and not just waiting till I've done all 12, but like showing them 3 um interviews, findings, and discussion, and I'm submitting that to them this week. Surprise! Surprise, surprise. I watch the internet too much anyway, because that song that meme is in my head. But anyway, so working on that is what I've been doing. And Dr. Lacey was extremely helpful in showing me when you shared, when I had an opportunity to share my work. She was just asking me, like, Chris, share your work, but she was asking for volunteers, and I volunteered as tribute to share a paragraph that I was working on and figuring out how to break that down and add examples. So by the end of yesterday, I had like 14 shitty paragraphs for the first coded participant, because for my interviews I wrote memos for them. So in case you're wondering what that means when you say you're doing that, I wrote that down, because when I tried to do the video before, I was all over the world. But so basically what I did is I started with the Excel memos, because when I coded the transcripts to my code book, there was a memo file where I wrote like every single note, every single thing I had possibly thought about, not only what they said, but my own interpretations of that. And how that connected back to my research questions. And so what I was looking at is what stood out in coding that spoke to the themes that I use, because I think I have between 17 to 20 themes. Don't quote me, but that's what I have. And then I was also pulling out, participant quotes. And as I said, I wrote my interpretations in my own words. And what does this, for example, show about how participants, let's say, navigates platforms? What does this show about participants' experiences with community, or what it means? And then the other part that I still have to do is the discussion link, which that means I'll, jot down a note about what it connects to in terms of other work that is in conversation with. And I think that's the part where I feel like in this process, it feels like you're naked and vulnerable. And I'm not trying to be provocative by saying naked and vulnerable. I'm just saying, because there's nothing to hide behind. In my head, there's a song going, singing "There's Nowhere to Hide." But anyway, I'm not gonna sing that for you today. But there's nowhere to hide. There's not a mask, because that's you writing it. And I know that in this process, you write, drafts, and you write for comments, and you're awaiting, following up with your committee members in this process. So I get that. But I think it's just getting comfortable too with writing what you think and your interpretations on the page and getting it out of your mind. And so that's been very helpful. Like I said, I did that last night. So by the time the retreat was from 11 to 3, and I took a break, and then I got back at finishing up. So I had at least finished the first coded, transcript, has, and edited and everything. So will I go back again? Yes, but it's a nicer draft than it was when I first started, because that's the writing process. It's messy, it's muddy, it's do I know what I'm doing? Am I sure? And I say that because yes, it is true. And I said this earlier. I have done interviews as by day. I'm a engineering and physical sciences research data services librarian. I built an entire research agenda because my position was tenure track, and so I started with interviews. I didn't start with it because I felt like I knew everything about interviews. I did interviews when I was interviewing STEM faculty, graduate students, and postdocs, because I was using it also as, researching what their needs are and its connectivity to, data management and data sharing, and, these policies that now exist that are stating, you must do this, or at least encouraging you to share data at that particular time. I do believe there have been some changes to that in so many different multifaceted ways. Yet, while I was doing that aspect of interviews for, the research agenda and to fulfill the requirements of my job, I also discovered I love research and conducting interviews. Two, I also was using the interviews as a way to build relationships with STEM faculty, graduate students, and postdocs, in order to, find out what their needs are and to provide, whatever assistance they might have revealed or indicated that they were interested in. And that's what I used the interviews for. So it was twofold. It was the research, yes. It's also building relationships, as an engineering, as a librarian that's within the engineering library. So that was what I did. And while, that had a goal and that has actual peer review produced papers out of that, I did interviews, I did focus groups, then later I did content analysis. So I've done that work. The difference is that with my dissertation, my field is not the same. It's race, digital studies, and intersectionality. And I am examining Black trans men's digital information practices. I'm interviewing them. I'm also using critical technocultural discourse analysis, which is analyzing podcast episodes and digital media content. And so that's the second, the CTDA is you're literally listening to the podcast episodes and coding what they say. And then also, it's also the analysis of comments. So that in itself is, like I said, a different, is a broadening. I won't say it's different. I'll stop saying different. It's a broadening of a research interest. So it often feels like, yes, it's true for my narrative that I wrote about my research questions and who I was in conversation with before I took my field exam, to now be in it feels like, on one hand, yeah, that's what you said. Remember when you did this qualifying exam? But then on the other hand, thinking back, it felt so broad and far off that it was like, yeah, I'm doing this, but you really weren't in it yet. And so now it's in it because I passed my prelim. I conducted the study. I have either coded one set of data and I'm writing the findings on it, or in beginning the process of coding these videos and digital media content. So it's just an interesting experience. And I think I say these out loud because, the Wiley Report is about my experiences as a doctoral student. Sometimes I also share my whole life, or at least things that come up with me in my life. Because I also feel in addition to becoming a researcher, or even better researcher than I already am, I'm also a teacher, and I believe in using lived experiences to illustrate points. I hope people get that. It's also, the Wiley Report is also collected to a memory of a good friend of mine that was heavily and deeply involved in my life, from meeting her on the internet in Black Planet. And so we used to have all kinds of conversations, and she knew me as I was continuing my education, from leaving Georgia to moving to to different places and spaces and continuing my education and even getting my job, in Illinois. She knew me in different versions of me and was always really supportive. And we always would talk on the phone. So she's since passed away in 2014. So in many ways, some parts of the Wiley Report feel like a conversation that I would have her, because we would talk about life, what you got going on, whether it was school, whether it was work, whether it was relationships, whether it was church ministry, whether it was going to church, whether it was our parents, and or shopping, or whatever the interest or whatever the thing was, we talked about that. And in a way, I guess oftentimes in my mind, the Wiley Report is a callback to that. Even though it's true that yes, she's gone, I miss her dearly, I have had since made other communities or experiences and met others that I have similar type of relationships with and similar conversations with. Yet it's also true that, I've talked about grief here. If you scroll back, there's a whole link where I give a full conversation about grief. Yet it's still true that even, with grief and meeting other people, still doesn't change the fact that you miss your friend, or you miss your loved one that is no longer here. Even though, yeah, you meet others, that memory of who that person was to you, in totality, the good parts, the uncertainty, and all of it still stand out in your mind. So I'm back at it today, and we meet in like 20 minutes. I'll be online again. I also collected the 2 other transcripts. So I have all of that together as far as all of those paragraphs. So I need to clean those, do that same process and clean those. And you probably could have done it in a different way. And when I say different, I mean, I could have probably put it all together on one document, but that made me feel like having that back and forth, looking between the code book to the transcript instead of doing it one at a time. It made me feel like if I didn't do it one at a time, it would be like having 35 tabs open and I don't even know if anything's getting done. So this is my process. So so many things I'm learning. People do it the way that they do it, in a manner that works for them, which is often what I feel like not necessarily research solely becomes, but your rhythm of what it is that you work on and how you work becomes what you do. And when you learn other ways, you might incorporate them or you might not. I hold space for all of it. So thanks for listening to me yak about this process, where I'm at, what I'm working on in life in general. I appreciate everyone that takes time to hit play and listen to me talk. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great day. I hope you're doing something amazing and enjoying life to the best of your ability. If no one has said they care about you and your voice matters, I'm saying it does, friend. Keep going, keep dreaming, keep moving towards your goals, whatever they may be. I believe in you. You have a good day.